I was doing my daily quiet time and I found something interesting. So I had just finished praying to Pelagius when I decided to read Luke chapter 18, which is a pretty important passage to show the provisionist understanding of grace, at least in my mind. Now, if you want to open and read with me, I'm going to read what I think are the relevant portions of the passage that I found, and I'm going to explain how I think the provisionist understanding best fits with this. This is in something called the Bible. Some of you may have heard of it. If not, don't worry. There are a lot of provisionists that have not read it, not heard of it. So, hey, it's completely normal. I get it. But, for us more mature in the faith, I really want to push that you guys start to read it every once in a while. Maybe once every few months or a year. That's how much I read it. And this was one of those days. So I'm going to be reading from chapter 18 of the book of Luke. I think it's a gospel. So here we are. This is the relevant passage. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself: God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. Yeah, and then I'm just going to skip down. In verse 14, it says, I tell you, this man went down to his house justified. Okay, so this passage I think really gives us a good picture of the provisionist understanding of grace, and it shows us a way that we should be praying. So when you're praying to God or Julian, you may use this kind of prayer because it has scriptural precedent that you thank God for what He has made you to be, if that makes sense. So, recall that the provisionist understanding of grace that we have is much more broad than what you see in other churches that basically hold to like Gnostic concepts of grace, where God has to give you favor that you can't begin your works, if that makes sense. God has to give you either merit or has to give you some kind of mercy that you have not earned, or He gives you a substance that infuses some habits into you. But I think this passage shows us what grace really is like. It's much more broad. So see this individual, when he prays to God, he thanks God for the way that he is. He says, God, I thank you that I am doing these things. I thank you that I'm not like this other person. He doesn't attribute it to some kind of mercy. He doesn't say, God, I thank you for giving me this, mercy that I have not earned to eventually become this way. He doesn't say that he transformed into that. He also doesn't say that, God, I thank you, you've given me this infused quality that has made me this way. No, he just says, God, thank you for making me this way. God, thank you for making it my nature to be like this, to be less sinful than others. I think this is a really good picture of how our grace works. So think of how in our system we speak about grace can come in many different forms. So like the Bible itself is kind of grace, like in the sense that it's prevenient grace, because it comes before you can do anything. You need the Bible to know it. It's like a textbook. That's how I generally think of grace. And I think this is another good example. We thank God for the fact that He has made us the way that we are. He has made some of us not like other sinners, and so we can thank God for it. It's not on us. It's not on us. We aren't saving ourselves in that sense, but we can say, hey, God, thank you for making me in a way that I can be saved. And there is actually a sense in which I won't say that we're saving ourselves, but we're really contributing to our salvation in that we're the way we are and we don't like move away from that, and that we continually decide, hey, I'm going to be doing these good works. So there's a sense in which we don't begin the works, like God acts first by creating us this way, and we just live out who we are, and that's how salvation works. So I think this gives us a good picture of how we should pray as provisionists. We should be praying, we should be, thinking of other people in our lives that are not as good as we are. That is entirely due to God's decision. And we should say, hey, God, thank you for this. Thank you for making me this way. And if you want to pray to, Pelagius as I do, you can of course say, Pelagius, thank you for giving me the inspiration to be this way, to show me, and to thank God that, Christ came just to be an example for us. Right? Christ is an example, and that's the primary value of his atonement. So alongside this, I think another good argument in interpreting the passage this way is simply that of a negative epistemology, as I like to call it. So There is a Gnostic figure that some of you may have heard of. He's a determinist. He's really the root of a lot of errors in this world. He's really the root of Calvinism, which is one of the most damnable heresies that there is. His name is Augustine. And my general epistemology with Augustine is if Augustine says it, it's wrong, and so we should go for the other view. Augustine, when he comments on this passage, he says that the man who prayed this way was in sin, and that he doesn't recognize that faith itself is a gift. That the other guy that he was praying, I won't say against, but he was thanking God that he was not like him, and somehow this guy was justified instead. Which I I don't know how you get that. I mean, I read verse 14 to you guys, but what happens is when we look at something Augustine says, we generally say, okay, Augustine says X, therefore non-X is true. And so when Augustine says that, this first man is not justified, they did something wrong, we know that the man is justified, he did something right. And Augustine even says things like faith is a gift. Recall that we have a much broader understanding of grace, where we're going to say that, things like the Bible is grace, the way that you're made is grace from God. But generally, we aren't going to say that faith is a gift or anything like that. No, that's pretty deterministic and leads to some Gnostic conclusions from the monarchies. And we want to stick with like the free will Christianity that we see in like two fathers, right? So overall, I hope this video was really helpful for you all. I think this will really maybe revolutionize some of your prayer lives, because a lot of us, growing up in, institutional churches that, really just want to tear you down. I'd been thinking about how I'd been sinning, and I hadn't been thinking enough about what the good things, or how many good things I've been doing. So hope you all have a nice day. Thanks again for watching another episode of Scholastic Provisionists. Goodbye.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching another Scholastic Lutherans video. If you'd like to support us, you can contribute on Patreon or Subscribestar at Scholastic Lutherans. You'll get access to our Telegram chat, more content, and other perks. Links can be found in the description and in the pinned comments. Subscribe, like, or leave a comment, and have a nice day.